"Sir, you're under arrest for trespassing on your own property." That's what the cop almost said before I showed him my deed. See, this Karen had been terrorizing our lake community for months, calling police on anyone who dared to exist without her permission. She threatened to sue me for $50,000, filed false police reports, and even tried bribing county officials. Here's the kicker: she had no idea I owned the $800,000 mansion she was renting. Picture dawn breaking over Lake Serenity. Pine needles mixing with morning mist. When suddenly blue police lights start strobing across my grandfather's old cabin. And there she is, Brenda Carmichael, standing on her mansion's deck in a bright pink bathrobe, pointing at me like I'm some criminal mastermind. My name's Marcus, and 3 years ago I thought I'd found paradise. After 20 years in military logistics and a divorce that felt like getting run over by a tank, I inherited my grandfather's cabin on Lake Serenity, Minnesota. Population 3,200. The cabin's nothing fancy, a 1960s A-frame sitting on 2 acres of pure heaven. Every morning I'd wake to loons calling across mirror-still water. For 2 perfect years, Lake Serenity earned its name. 47 properties around 8 miles of shoreline. One sacred rule: wave when you see each other, help when someone's in trouble, mind your own business the rest of the time. Then Hurricane Brenda hit. She bought the biggest eyesore on the lake, an $800,000 McMansion that looked like someone dropped a suburban Dallas house into Minnesota woods by accident. Within her first week, she'd introduced herself by pontoon boat, always wearing blindingly white capris and cardigans bright enough to signal aircraft. The morning everything changed, I was sitting on my dock with coffee when I heard the rumble of an overpowered pontoon cutting through the calm. "Yo. Hello there, neighbor." Brenda's voice carried across the water. She pulled up wearing a smile that would make a used car salesman proud. "I'm Brenda Carmichael from the executive estate. I'm here on official HOA business. The Lake Serenity Homeowners Association has voted on updated aesthetic standards, and your rustic setup isn't meeting our community guidelines." I set my coffee down hard. "What homeowners association?" Her plastic smile cracked. "The one that protects our property values from declining influences. That aluminum boat has got to go. And the fishing gear scattered around makes the whole area look like a bait shop exploded. Lady, this property has been in my family since before you were born. There's no HOA covenant on my deed." The mask slipped. Her voice dropped to Arctic temperatures. "We'll see about that, won't we, soldier boy?" She gunned that pontoon engine, sending a wake that spilled my coffee. 3 days later, I found an envelope taped to my front door. Inside was the most elaborate piece of fiction I'd seen since my ex-wife's divorce settlement. Lake Serenity Homeowners Association violation notice, blazed across expensive letterhead. Apparently, I owed them $500 for failure to maintain dock aesthetic standards. The document looked impressive: official seals, case numbers, legal-sounding language. Too bad it was worthless, but most folks wouldn't know that. Time for reconnaissance. The Cedar Falls courthouse basement smelled like old leather. I made friends with Dolores, the 70-something county clerk. "Another HOA victim, hun?" she whispered. "That Carmichael woman's been in here 6 times this month." My deed was crystal clear. No covenants, no restrictions, no HOA authority whatsoever. But while checking records, something made my detector start screaming. Several lakefront properties had recently transferred to Carmichael Holdings, LLC. Quick online search revealed the truth. Our self-appointed HOA queen was running an unlicensed vacation rental empire, turning quiet cabins into party houses. Armed with this intelligence, I tested community sentiment with strategic social media reconnaissance. My Facebook post was simple: "Has anyone else received violation notices from the Lake Serenity HOA?" My phone exploded. 8 different residents sent private messages, each with their own Brenda horror story. She'd been systematically working around the lake, threatening elderly widows over bird feeders and young families over mailbox colors. Janet, a retired librarian, had been documenting everything in a 3-ring binder. Tom from the marina shared photos of Brenda's bounced checks. Even 90-year-old Florence chimed in about unusual late-night activity at Brenda's rentals. I created a private group chat called Lake Serenity Truth Squad. That evening my phone rang. Brenda's voice oozed through. "Marcus, sweetie, I saw your adorable little Facebook post. You're making this unnecessarily difficult." "Just asking questions, Brenda." Neighborly curiosity. Oh, honey, you really don't want to go down this road with me? I have connections you couldn't imagine, and I will absolutely report you to the appropriate authorities for harassment and cyberbullying. Tuesday morning brought a surprise visitor. Tom Hendricks from County Code Enforcement, looking embarrassed. Mr. Marcus, sorry to bother you, but I've got to follow up on reports about dock violations and an abandoned vehicle. I poured him coffee and we examined my supposedly criminal dock setup. Tom measured everything twice, then shook his head. Between you and me, this is the 23rd complaint I've gotten from the same address in 6 months. That's when Tom let slip something interesting. Brenda had tried to slip him a $100 bill, claiming it was a consulting fee for finding creative interpretations of building codes. That evening, the Truth Squad attended Brenda's emergency HOA meeting as observers. Only 6 people showed up, mostly property managers from her rental empire. Brenda prepared an elaborate PowerPoint titled, "Protecting Our Community Investment." During bathroom break, Janet followed Brenda and overheard a heated phone conversation. "I told you the payments are coming. These people are more stubborn than we expected, but I've got new strategies." The pieces clicked together. This wasn't about community standards. Someone was applying financial pressure to Brenda, and she was desperately trying to generate income through harassment. While researching her lawyer, I discovered he specialized in foreclosure defense and debt collection. Not exactly the kind you hire for neighborhood disputes unless you're already drowning in legal problems. So I filed my own complaint against Brenda for harassment, filing false reports, and using county resources for personal vendettas. Then I reached out to the actual owner of Brenda's mansion through the property management company. Turns out they were very interested to hear about their tenants' creative interpretation of lease agreements and unauthorized business activities. Sheriff's Deputy Rodriguez pulled me aside. "Off the record, we've been documenting everything. She's walking a very thin line and we're watching." That honor came at 6:30 a.m. on a Thursday that started peaceful and went sideways fast. I was enjoying morning coffee when police car tires crunched on gravel. Blue lights strobed across my cabin walls. 2 officers climbed out. The senior officer, Sergeant Peterson, clearly knew this was going to be another waste of taxpayer money. "Mr. Marcus, we've received reports that you're trespassing on private property and made threatening statements toward a female resident." I invited them in for coffee. "Sir, we have to respond to all calls," Peterson said. "But this complaint doesn't pass the smell test." That's when I produced my secret weapon, documentation. Security camera footage, property deeds, complete timeline of Brenda's harassment campaign, even the code enforcement officer's written statement about attempted bribery. Peterson reviewed footage of my supposed threatening behavior, which showed me helping elderly Florence load fishing gear while Brenda lurked behind her windows like a suburban spy novel villain. "Ma'am," Peterson muttered, "either you're the world's most polite terrorist or somebody's been yanking our chain." While the officers reviewed my evidence, my phone rang. Dave Morrison, a private investigator, had finished the background check I'd commissioned. Brenda Carmichael owed $47,000 in unpaid HOA fees from her previous community in Minneapolis. The irony was thick. She'd been sued by that HOA and lost. More concerning, she owed money to everyone from contractors to credit card companies. Dave had discovered Brenda's rental operation violated 3 different zoning ordinances with business licenses she'd never obtained. Peterson finished reviewing documentation. "Mr. Marcus, I strongly suggest you consider filing charges for filing false police reports. This lady's been using us as her personal enforcement arm, and that stops today." Arthur Penton had been my grandfather's lawyer since Carter was president. At 78, he still dressed like he was arguing cases before the Supreme Court. "Marcus, you might want to sit down for this. I've been reviewing your grandfather's estate more carefully, and there's something we missed." He spread documents across his desk like a poker player revealing a royal flush. "When your grandfather died, you inherited more than just the cabin. In 1987, he created the Northwoods Property Trust. You now own 60% controlling interest in a trust that holds 4 lakefront properties." My coffee mug stopped halfway to my lips. 4 properties? Including the $800,000 mansion currently occupied by one Brenda Carmichael. The words hit me like a slap with a wet fish. I'd been fighting my own tenant without knowing it. Arthur pulled out a lease agreement. "Your grandfather was thorough. This lease includes clauses about peaceful enjoyment of neighboring properties, prohibition of unlicensed business activities, and maintaining community harmony. Miss Carmichael has violated approximately 14 different terms. How behind is she on rent? 2 months with late fees accumulating. The property management company was preparing eviction proceedings, but they needed trust approval. That's you. I stared at the documents. Arthur, she doesn't know I'm her landlord, does she? His face cracked into a smile. Not unless she's considerably smarter than her recent behavior suggests. What happened next proved desperate people make spectacularly stupid decisions. The sabotage started subtly. Tuesday night, my security cameras caught a pickup truck matching her handyman's vehicle creeping past my dock at 2:17 a.m. Wednesday morning, my fishing boat was sitting half submerged. The drain plug had been removed with surgical precision. 2,800 in water damage. But my security cameras had captured everything in glorious high-def detail, complete with audio of her handyman muttering about crazy lady jobs. I filed the police report. Sheriff's Deputy Rodriguez arrived within an hour. This crossed the line. Property damage is a felony if it exceeds $1,000. While I dealt with insurance adjusters, Brenda was having her own nervous breakdown. Truth Squad members reported increasingly erratic behavior. She'd started approaching elderly neighbors demanding they choose sides in what she called the lake war. Florence told Brenda exactly where she could stick her loyalty demands, using language that would make a sailor blush. But the real intelligence came from Janet's library research. Brenda's residential history going back 8 years showed identical patterns. Neighbor disputes escalating to harassment, accusations directed at anyone who stood up to her, eventual departure under legal pressure. County Commissioner Bill Hayes had been serving Cedar Falls for 12 years without a single ethics complaint. According to his later testimony, Brenda strutted into his office Tuesday morning carrying a designer purse and dangerous confidence. Commissioner Hayes, I have a proposition that could benefit both of us. She slid an envelope across his desk. $5,000 cash for consulting services regarding the environmental hazard. That was my property. Bill Hayes immediately reported the attempted bribery to the district attorney's office, triggering an investigation that would make Watergate look like a parking ticket dispute. But Brenda wasn't finished. She made similar approaches to the zoning inspector and even attempted to bribe a sheriff's deputy. The zoning inspector actually wore a wire during their second meeting. The recording captured Brenda counting out bills while explaining how Marcus, the dangerous veteran, needed to be relocated. When Arthur called with news about the DA's investigation, his voice carried that special tone lawyers use when trying not to sound too satisfied. Marcus, she's facing potential prison time. Bribery of public officials is a felony that carries serious consequences. The local newspaper editor contacted me for an interview. This has grown beyond neighborhood problems. Public corruption allegations are legitimate news. The media attention triggered Brenda's final public meltdown at the boat launch in front of 27 witnesses. This is all conspiracy. Brenda screamed. He's been stalking and terrorizing me for months. I demand he pay my legal fees and moving expenses. Florence finally spoke up with the authority of someone who'd earned the right to say exactly what she thought. Honey, I've lived on this lake for 60 years and you're the problem here. That boy hasn't done anything but fish and mind his own business while you've been running around threatening lawsuits like some kind of legal terrorist. The crowd nodded agreement. Several people pulled out phones to record. Arthur advised me to reveal the landlord relationship publicly at the next town council meeting. Time to end this before she hurts herself or someone else more seriously. Word spread faster than gossip at a church potluck. 300 small-town residents packed into a high school gymnasium. The energy felt like a championship game crossed with a public execution. Brenda arrived fashionably late with her expensive Twin Cities lawyer. She dressed for battle in a white power suit. I approached the podium feeling calmer than I had in months. Thank you all for coming tonight. 3 months ago, I thought I was dealing with a simple neighbor dispute. Tonight, I'd like to share what I've actually discovered. Property ownership documents projected onto the gymnasium screen. The audience gasped when the truth became clear. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been Brenda Carmichael's landlord for the past 3 years without knowing it. The gymnasium erupted. Applause, laughter, and more than a few, "I knew it," shouts echoed while Brenda's face went through more color changes than a mood ring in a microwave. Arthur's timeline of lease violations played out. Security camera footage of the boat sabotage drew actual boos, while audio recordings of bribery attempts made the county attorney start taking notes that looked like arrest warrants. Brenda's lawyer attempted damage control. My client was unaware of the ownership structure and acted in good faith to protect community standards. The audience's laughter was so loud it probably registered on seismic equipment. Florence shouted, "Good faith my ass," loud enough to make the pastor cover his ears. Financial records showing unpaid bills and fraudulent business operations scrolled across the screen. Local business owners openly discussed Brenda's creative payment avoidance while Tom held up photocopies of bounced checks. That's when I delivered the line I'd been practicing. "Miss Carmichael, I offered you respect as a neighbor and reasonable discussion as a community member. You chose intimidation, harassment, and criminal behavior instead." I held up the official eviction notice. "As your landlord, I'm giving you 30 days notice to vacate for multiple lease violations." This could have been handled privately and respectfully. The standing ovation lasted so long I thought the fire marshal might issue noise violations. Florence led the applause like a conductor directing the world's most enthusiastic orchestra. Brenda stood up with dramatic flair. "This is all lies and conspiracy. He's bought off law enforcement and the media." Sheriff's Deputy Rodriguez moved closer as Brenda's voice escalated. Her lawyer physically restrained her from approaching the podium. The TV reporter interviewed me afterward. "What message do you have for other people dealing with HOA abuse? Document everything, know your rights, and remember that bullies only win when good people stay silent." Next day's newspaper headline: Lake Dispute Exposes Bribery Scheme. Brenda vanished from Lake Serenity faster than a bad check bounces, packing her designer luggage into a U-Haul headed for Florida within 14 days. The criminal case wrapped up with small-town efficiency. Brenda accepted a plea deal for probation and 200 hours of community service. The Lake Serenity Advisory Committee evolved from our Truth Squad naturally, establishing reasonable community standards without fascist tendencies. We partnered with county environmental agencies on lake conservation, created Neighborhood Watch focusing on actual crime instead of unauthorized bird feeders. The real magic happened when I discovered how to invest 3 years of surprise rental income. The Lake Serenity Community Scholarship Fund rewards local kids who understand community service instead of community harassment. Personal healing arrived slowly then suddenly. Janet and I started dating around Christmas, bonding over shared appreciation for proper documentation. I rediscovered my grandfather's woodworking shop, building picnic tables for public lake access. 3 battle-tested lessons. First, research deed restrictions before buying property. Most HOA requirements are unenforceable fantasies. Second, public record searches reveal anyone's liens and judgments through county websites for free. Third, security cameras and documentation defeat harassment better than any lawyer. This morning, watching sunrise paint Lake Serenity golden while loons call across peaceful water, I hear grandfather's wisdom echoing. Sometimes standing up for yourself means standing up for everybody. If you've survived your own HOA nightmare, share your story in the comments. If you enjoyed watching justice triumph, smash that subscribe button for HOA stories, where ordinary people refuse to let neighborhood tyrants destroy their peace.